Dossel. It's here. I can see him. It's on mute.
I'm here. Sorry, I was in the wrong part of my screen.
David Finn.
I'm here.
Sarah Silver is not here. Lisa Strout.
Yeah.
Betsy Towns.
Here.
Owens Daniels, not here. Jane Deb.
Here.
Jennifer Finkel.
Here.
And Jason Thiel. Let's see, Jason. Okay.
And since there are enough of us here to approve minutes, have you had a chance to look at the minutes? And is there a motion to approve?
David.
Any additions or corrections, or all in favor of approval?
Raise your hand. Okay,
All right, unanimous there.
moving right along.
All right. So, Kelly, you want to introduce the bus shelters? We had a good conversation about bus shelters and came to our group fairly quickly. And want to put forward those that were proposed by the committee to the commission for approval.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen and let you all see. We're just going to kind of dive into the Dropbox folders. So the committee recommended 10 designs for this project. And here, let me see. Share the screen. Sorry, I have a new computer and it's making me get permission to share my screen. Okay. Everybody see this okay? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we'll just kind of go down alphabetically. Community Design Studio. They did a project for us last time around over on Country Club in Jonestown. They're proposing a similar project where they would work with kind of the community who uses the shelter in an area that we give them, and based on the other 9 locations, I'm recommending a bus shelter that's on Broad Street by the Gateway Nature Preserve near Washington Park, mainly to just kind of diversify locations and try to get one in a different ward, because a lot of them are kind of clustered in the northeast, east, and southeast wards. And I believe the North Ward too. So I don't think we had one in the South Ward, and this was a good one. And it's a brand new bus shelter. And right now it has a metal backing, but they can swap that out for a plexiglass backing, and it'll be a good spot for that. Next we have Carolina Corona. She also did a bus shelter last time, and so this is kind of a sketch. She's proposing to go into Hispanic neighborhood. And we have one, let's see, I believe it's at Watown and High Point Road. And it's a well-used shelter in a Hispanic Latino neighborhood. And it's where 3 bus lines come together. So a lot of people transfer there. Then we come to another repeat. These are not all repeats, but Carlos Gustavo, he did one last time with tobacco leaves and another plant, I believe. This one's a Pilot Mountain, and we found a spot for it on the north side of town, near, I think it's Oak Summit Road and University Parkway. It's near the animal shelter. Let's see. Next, we have Jason Lancaster. He's new to us. He's a teacher, professor at Forsyth Tech, and he came to us a year or 2 ago about doing a class project, maybe a mural somewhere. So he might be coming back eventually, but this is his work, and this one will probably go on Stratford Road near there's Taco Bell and Bojangles, kind of near where I-40 ties into Stratford Road. Salem Ortiz, this is another new person. She kind of, here, this is not it. This one's about the South Side neighborhood. So let's see. I think it's this, and she'd kind of be putting it back together to kind of fit into the bus shelter. But it kind of puts together a lot of South Side neighborhoods. And then Phoebe Pankey, who did one last year. She submitted 2, and the committee really liked her work. And decided to go with both of them. So this is Simon G. Atkins, and this would be near the Atkins School. And then this one is for the Bowen Park neighborhood, which is in the northeast of the city. And that has a brand new shelter too. So, so those 2 are Phoebe Pankey. And then Hunter Stansel. And this is Carl Wesley Matthews, who was a leader of the Winston-Salem sit-in movement. And this would be kind of near the Chronicle, the new Chronicle building in East Winston around Highland Avenue. And then Victoria Vassar, she did one on the Safe Bus Company, which is the predecessor to Wista. And we're gonna put this one near the Wista offices on North Trade Street. And then last, we have Mike Wilson, who did one last year, and then he has a design of this coach, Art Blevins, who was at the Haynes Hosiery Recreation Center, and then some of the players there. And this would go on North Patterson Avenue, right, very close to that recreation center. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about those. Oh, and I should say that if there's enough in the budget, I'm still getting the cost estimate from the people who are doing the installations. We have all but two of the 2020 bus shelters are still in place and look good, but one got crashed into and the whole shelter's gone. So gonna see if we can put that one up in another shelter across the street on Peters Creek Parkway. That's actually Owens Daniels shelter. And then there's one more up on New Walkertown that has been damaged. One of the windows was broken out, and then so we're gonna print that one and put it in another shelter if cost permits.
Kelly, can I ask a question? How are these fabricated? Are they like screen printed on the
These
glass?
are printed on vinyl. It's a heat applied vinyl. It has they're kind of see-through. It has like the little pinholes in them, so you can, if you're in the shelter, you can see through the glass. And it has a anti-graffiti coating on it. So it's there was one that had marker on it, and I was able to rub it off with a little rubbing alcohol. So they clean up well, and they're in the shelter, and they're not fading, and they look really good. So
the artist just supply you with the high res image, and then this company is able to print at that scale, and they look good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, we sometimes we have to do a little work on the back end. If they're vector files, which are like using lines instead of a dot grid, they blow up really easily. And then sometimes we have to kind of work with them to get them to the right format. But that's
Thanks.
what we do.
I was looking at Victoria Vassar's work, and that the Safe Bus Company graphic that she did I think is really great. And is there any way that we can encourage her to maybe think about doing that same treatment with other early Black-owned businesses? Like one of the things I thought of was doing something for the Black Panther ambulance company. And just creating these kind of rebranding of historic Black businesses.
Cliff, I agree. Her work is so beautiful, and we're really excited to land on this in the committee. If I remember correctly, certainly I was, and it raises another point that the piece that we added to this set of bus shelters was that they be place-based, maybe considering culture or history of the location. And Kelly, we remarked sort of near the end of that meeting that it would be great to have a little bit more text on this series of works than we did on the earlier ones, to make, to just let people know as they're there what the Safe Bus Company is, if they aren't already in the know. Or what view of Pilot Mountain they're looking at, or some aspect to interpret that content. Does it still seem feasible to do that, Kelly? And how can I help?
No, yeah, that's just something. I can work with the artists, and we kind of did that a little bit with the others. If they needed an explanation, we put it on there on a little panel on the side, so we can do that with this, and maybe do it larger in some cases.
And I didn't mean to bypass your question, Cliff, about could there be other businesses interpreted in this way? I don't where we are with the budget. I don't know if we could do it in this round, or what you think, Kelly.
It might be something for later 2022.
Yeah. I think we'll be pretty close on the budget for this round, but definitely something to suggest to her.
Yeah, definitely get her thinking, because I really like where she's going with this one here.
Yeah.
It's a great thing that we've got some young artists that are doing this, and sort of nurturing them, bringing them along a little bit. I mean, that'd be great to give them more things. I agree.
If it weren't COVID, it'd be nice to get this group together, maybe both groups, something to think about for the future, just for a point of connection among some young, some experienced artists.
When will they be going up, Kelly? What would be the final date? Would it be possible to have some kind of maybe some kind of an opening or some kind of an event around them?
Yeah, there might be. I mean, we're looking at the late winter, early spring, but it's really, it's kind of up in the air. There's no hard deadline,
The artists retain the rights to their pieces?
Yes, these are just they're just kind of borrowed. We'll be printing them on the bus shelters, but the artists own them free and clear, and they're just being paid to be displayed.
Kelly, what's the life expectancy of these?
I don't know, because they
Owen's accepted. I mean, I guess car crashes or crashes.
Yeah, the car crash.
If you get a car crash, it ain't very long. I can tell you.
No. Sorry to hear about that.
And I don't know if you missed it, Owens. If you didn't know, Owens is an artist, and before he was on the Public Art Commission, has done a couple pieces for the city, including a bus shelter, and so his bus shelter got crashed into. But if there's money in this budget, I'm gonna have that reprinted and put on another shelter across the street on Peters Creek Parkway. So hopefully it'll live on. The lifespan, if they're out in the world, if they're out in the weather, they're supposed to last at least a year, but these are covered, and there's no telling how long they'll last. It might be 5 years, because they don't seem to be fading, and they're not peeling off. So we'll just leave them.
What's the unit cost for getting one of these done?
It depends on which. There's two. Well, now there's 3 types of bus shelters, but I want to say about $500, maybe $600. So and that's printing it and installing it.
That's pretty cost effective.
Yeah. That sounds
Yeah.
good.
And then a fee to the artist. We've paid the
Right, and
artist.
then it's,
Right.
yeah, the artists get a fee, $1,000 each.
That's great.
Kelly, would
So-
you entertain, are we to entertain a motion to approve the committee selections?
Yes, please. Is that a motion?
It is a motion. I make a motion to approve their recommendations from
I
the
second.
bus shelters.
All
I'll
in-
second.
I heard a second from, I think, Cliff. And then all in favor?
Aye.
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 Sure.
Did you get everybody? Kelly, I saw unanimity there.
I did too. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the thoughtful ideas about how to move forward as well. And Kelly, I guess you're on to project reports.
Yes. Gonna stop the screen share. Okay, project reports. Salem Parkway Bridge Art. The RFP is posted. I've already gotten 2 applications somehow. And it has a deadline of February 11th.
Where's that posted again?
Yeah.
It's, I sent it to the State Arts Council, Americans for the Arts, and it's in, it's on the city webpage, and it went out to a hefty email list of people, anybody who applied for a sculpture in the past for the city got an email. Yes, Betsy put in the
Thank you,
chat
Betsy.
the 900-page. Don't try to open it on an old computer because it is massive. Oh, sorry, it's not that massive. It's only 8 pages.
Kelly, I got a question.
Yeah.
Since we had the incident with my shelter and the other shelters got damaged going forward, are we going to have some kind of pocket or bucket for damage and replacement in the future? Or we just kind of play it as it goes along?
Yeah, we're kind of playing it as it goes. I mean, we're fixing those up. We told everybody they would be, if they were damaged, they'd be taken down. They were meant to be temporary, but maybe we could leave this bucket of money open. If there's an extra $1,000 in there or something,
Yeah.
we can just kind of leave it open and then go in for touch-ups if we need to.
Okay.
For the downtown sculpture, we're moving along. The artist submitted a stamped engineered drawing of her sculpture, which has been approved by the city's head of engineering, and it's she's just waiting on her materials check, which seems to be slow moving through the city's check writing department, I guess, because of all the recent unpleasantness in the COVID realm. I think things have been slow moving getting checks out of there, but it's coming. So she'll be starting that very soon. Everything's all in line. The Clemens Library, I'm gonna send an email out to that group to get that started this month. So we'll probably have our first meeting and meet out at the Clemens Library and take a look around. And then the county project, Betsy, you emailed me something that I haven't looked at yet. So,
You mean the thing I emailed you 2 minutes before the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can jump in because I do have a little bit of an update that Owens and Dara and I had a brief conversation about kind of checking in about where we are on the possibility of a COVID memorial. And so we do have some questions for you, Kelly, in terms of like the steps that we laid out, that we kind of wanted to know whether the library that we would work with would be interested at all in having a COVID memorial, because we wouldn't really want to, to push this concept on the library unless they were amenable to that idea. It does seem like increasingly the COVID memorial becomes kind of an education project as much as a mourning project as we move on through this pandemic. And so Dara suggested that we might talk to Brian Hart at the library and is game to connect with her. And the main question that we have for the Public Art Commission is that if we do not connect with the library project, and that's what I'm associating those county funds with, is that right, Kelly? That it would be a library project, that if we don't make a solid connection with the library on the possibility of a COVID memorial, that we thought could potentially include some archiving of stories, some memories, some content collected from the city, as well as some kind of permanent memorial. That if we don't do that, we're really interested in knowing kind of the temperature of the Public Art Commission on whether a COVID memorial is a direction we as a group really want to continue to pursue. We do have connections with Fleming Elamine at the Combined Health Services and Social Services building or board, who's interested in working with us on this possibility. But we've kind of, we've gone in a number of directions as a small committee, and as the temperatures, I guess, and climate around COVID have changed, the project seems to have changed a little bit as well. And so we just wanted to check in with the commission in terms of, is it something we want to pursue if it doesn't connect with the library? And how do y'all feel about us going ahead and connecting with the library and asking if they're interested in working with us in this direction, rather than towards a bench or a bronze book or the direction that they might guide.
Well, I think that I'll just put my 2 cents in. I think the library would be an interesting partner and a venue, because so much has happened and this is taking place over such a long period of time. I would be really reluctant to get very committed to a memorial at this point, because I think we need to process this as a society than we can when we're in the middle of it. I think emotionally it's important right now to recognize that we would do something and make something and acknowledge this somehow. But the form that takes, I think, to be is really hard for us to figure out right now. So that's what I would say about it. I'm really in favor of it, but it may be something that we would, think of it as a long-term project.
It's interesting, Kelly. The first time we talked about this, we really were talking. I'm sorry, it's interesting, David. When we first talked about it, we were talking about, helping people who didn't have any opportunity to get together to mourn their lost loved one have some kind of public opportunity to connect and to mourn, and that would be temporary. but as the project has drawn on, and as people have started reflecting on the role of memorials, there's so much more conversation about how a memorial might play a role in kind of shifting the way we respond to pandemic or illness in the future. And shifting the way we think about this moment. But that raises these questions that you're highlighting, David, around like, how do we know what that should look like when we don't have any perspective on it? In DC, there's a policy governing memorials that says you can't make a memorial until 20 years after the event. That is sometimes, voted out. That like sometimes, there's a decision that we need to act faster than 20 years. But that perspective is interesting and is balanced by the question that people are raising, that if we had 1918 flu memorials, we might have responded differently to COVID if it were in our consciousness.
At the same time, DC, there is a huge memorial in DC that's done with small white flags, an attempt to really sort of make the pandemic visible, which I think is really great. But it is, of course, a very temporary thing. And I think, so there's the difference of how we as a community decide to respond. I mean, we could do something that's in the moment, but also, or, I mean, maybe that's appropriate, and just figuring out when to do that, since we are still in the middle of it, is a challenge. It would be nice to have something that marked I don't know, it may not end. So maybe marking the end is a mistake. I don't know. It's really an interesting question for a memorial,
Well, as getting into this discussion, it seems like that it's something that we should not walk away from, but we should hold back on and see how things develop. But also we could look at doing things that has some kind of permanence, like like a digital memorial, for instance, something that can evolve over time, or even some kind of a physical memorial that things are added to it. If you want to do a sculpture, and elements could be added to it, so it grows larger and larger as time progresses. And maybe it's having that kind of a time arts element part of it, but might be a more apt memorial for this event.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Those are good ideas.
I agree. And one question that Owens and Dara and I came up against yesterday is, like, we too think that this is worth pursuing, and it's worth pursuing now and in the future, despite this real challenge about perspective. The question is, does this feel like a public art commission project? And we can see ways that it does and ways that it doesn't. Does it feel like, do we have the right partners in the room? If we have the Department of Health Services, do we, and maybe the library is a really interesting one to think about story gathering and archiving the actual individuals, and names and information about those folks. And do we want to pursue it at this moment from that point of view of, like, it is an alive and collaborative art and archiving project, storytelling project. And so it's just a little bit different from projects that we've done in the past. And I'm just, we keep kind of taking steps and then stalling out a little bit. And what we had thought was that a really good step would be to talk to the library and see if they're interested in this, and connect maybe with some partners, and are curious about, what you think about that set of partners, the library and the county health services, who that would be the people who would be providing us with the data that we would need to give people the opportunity to share their family stories. And just checking in about suggestions from this group about how to proceed if we do want to create something like that, that is less a bronze sculpture memorializing this plague, as would have been done for the Great Plague and Black Death, I guess, in Europe. So just suggestions about steps, because these ideas about shared storytelling are so valuable. But how this commission would go forward with those.
I think perhaps the first step would be to reach out to those partners you were talking about and see what their input is. Certainly the health department has a much more hands-on experience, and they may have their own suggestions that would make this a little more clearer going forward. And the library might have limitations that will just cancel it out. So I think if you all wanted to reach out to them and have some kind of conversation with obviously no promises, I think that's the best way forward, just my opinion.
I'm
Yeah, I
happy
agree.
to talk to Brian Hart, who's the head of the library, because I'm going to be talking to him anyway about the Clemens Library project. So can bring this into it if you want.
That sounds great. And let me just ask one budget question, and then we can definitely move on. And that is listed separately as the county project. Do we have 10,000 to consider using for this, or am I mistaken?
It was 10,000 from the county, yes. And I'm gonna try to find the letter that they reacted to see if we said that it would be a permanent project or a.
Okay, that was actually our final question, was if we do it, does it need to be permanent? Because it seemed like we could proceed more in a typical public art commission process by drafting a call to artists and thinking of someone to organize and to curate this project, if we had funding to do it, whether it was temporary or permanent.
Let's see if I can find this.
Did Kelly freeze? Oh, no, you're still there.
Sorry, I'm reading this.
You look like you're frozen.
I'm reading this letter.
While you're looking for that, so Betsy, when you're talking about like capturing stories and storytelling, I mean, it almost sounds like the Holocaust project to me that's been going on for, that keeps going on and on and on. And we'll, are you thinking also, which makes sense, that the library would be a great partner for that, if that's something they have the resources to do, but then are you also thinking about something like a physical something?
I mean, I'll answer that question 3 different ways, which are kind of based on the way the project has changed in the 3 times that we've taken it up. So initially, we were really thinking of something like what happened, I think, really powerfully in Detroit, that was like actually allowing photographs and names and dates of the people who died to become visible in the city as part of a sort of a funeral, funereal procession that people could drive by those. Then those were gathered and made into a permanent quilt kind of on a public building. So the actual photographs came inside and became much more long-lived than they had been intended. The second idea was, okay, let's work on a memorial, like you're suggesting, kind of a permanent work of art. And that was when we had that optimistic moment of thinking, well, we've lost a lot of lives and people have hurt, and now we're done. And let's mark this. And now here we are, as much inside it in a new, in a new phase as we have ever been. And so then the question became, how do we, how can the arts respond to the pain and the change and the complexity and the politics and the, all of the nuances of this thing we're living inside. And it, as I think David and Cliff are saying, like, it changed at that point from something that, oh, let's memorialize this thing in our past, essentially, to let's have the arts help us navigate the experience that we're in and document. And so that's when this idea, and Owen's correct me, I think it was Dara who said yesterday, let's really think about how can we think about the role of a library or the role of an archive if we're gonna be doing this work. So
because in a way, it's an investment, right? No matter what, it taking the material now and getting people's reactions now and having that part of the story is really important going forward. So in that sense, it is really, we need to think of it as an ongoing project that may have an endpoint that results in something physical, maybe, or maybe not. I like the idea of hiring somebody in a curatorial function, more of a curatorial, an artist curator kind of function, to be able to take this kind of project on, because that sounds like kind of the right approach.
So it looks like the letter doesn't say permanent or temporary, but I would imagine it would be understood as a permanent project. The letter of request from 2020, from March of 2020.
What if, just spitballing here, but what if we took the word memorial out and we called it, a COVID document? It doesn't have to be, a document doesn't have to be on paper. It could be, it's just merely a report that's added to. So we come up with a different concept of what we're reporting, what we're documenting, what we're making a history of.
I think that's a great idea to call it a document instead of a memorial, because a memorial is saluting something that has an end to it. And we were talking yesterday, and we talked about the library. I don't know if anybody got to see the redlining exhibition that was at the library, but that style of history and storytelling and being open-ended as documents going forward that can always be added to. That was something that we had talked about, that the library would be a good place for something like that. And it could always be added to in a digital way. It never has to be a solid something that people could come to and then it kind of ends. But if it's digital, you can always add to it. Maybe a booth, people can come and tell a story, and that story can be archived up, and you can change the stories periodically through curation. But the way that the red line was set up, the look of it, everything, you kind of walked in someone else's footsteps along the way to kind of figure out, how this all played out to you. And so I think that is that's something that, unless Betsy, I got it wrong, that's something we talked about yesterday.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I like that. Oh, excuse me.
no, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just gonna say, I like that idea from Cliff because it keeps sticking in my head that a memorial is something that has happened in the past and we're still living through it. But if you change the wording, it seems it's still alive, it's still affecting us, even though it has a past, but going forward, it's still going to affect us. If you wanted to start some kind of a conversation about that through the arts, I think that's, I like that much better.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just going to piggyback on that and say the thoughts of a memorial to me lean towards more those who have passed, where if you take that word out, I think it opens it up for the other stories that are available from the nurses, the hospital, the health department, everyone that sort of had to come together to make this come to an end at some point. It may not be next year, whenever, but it allows that door to be a little bit wider, I think, too. Mhm.
Well, that's sorry, I was typing while not on mute. I thought I was making those notes silently. But that sort of opens this up where I think, Kelly, maybe if you talk to Brian Hart, then our committee can come back together with a check-in from from Forsyth County Health Services and anyone else that y'all recommend we check in with as far as partners. And then we could think about shaping a proposal for an artist curator to bring back to this group for input and feedback and ideas. So that gives us a really strong step to think through. That's great. Kelly, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks everybody.
Yeah.
I put a item on here called other business in case Dara wanted to talk about an email she received. It was a request to the Arts Council to help or to see if they were interested in putting in an artistic crosswalk. We could talk about that later when Dara's here, if you want. My recommendation in the moment was rather than responding to individual requests for artistic crosswalks, it might be something that we want to do a series of artistic crosswalks at some point, kind of looking at the city as a whole and picking intersections based on some criteria besides, emails from the community. So if you want, we can discuss that next time, or we can discuss it now. And in addition to that, I just wanted to make sure to bring up for artistic bus shelters that this committee wanted to do eventually 3-dimensional bus shelters. And one of the people on the committee has talked about donating some money to that cause. and she knows of at least one other person that she thinks would donate money to it. So the time might be ripe to pursue that as another project if we could get some matching funds or something like that to do 1 or 2 or 3 or more artistic bus shelters that are actual sculptural bus shelters. So that's just something I want to bring to your attention, and we could discuss it next time, or could discuss it now, or it's up to you all.
Well, I'd really love to hear Dara's point of view on it, just since she brought it to us. I do have one comment that ties those two together, the three-dimensional bus shelters, which would be, I don't know if y'all remember the kind of more elaborate, expensive, sculptural potential bus shelters. To me, I think we could make a potent impact on the city if we thought about movement through the city and how, we might consider tying the bus shelter project together with the crosswalk project and thinking about, how we can have an impact through the arts on the crisis of inequity in the city. Thinking about not just making a pretty crosswalk, but on doing something that continues to raise that issue of safe movement and elegant movement, maybe even through the city, to tie it to the work of creative corridors on, changing the city through the arts. So just 2 cents.
You mean sort of not having them scattered about, but maybe having more of a plan for them and having that be really sort of consciously set out to sort of provide more of an equitable map of getting around the city and crossing all the different boundaries we have as well would be interesting for that.
Yeah, and our portrait project worked to create bridges. It seems like something that we have as a theme already in the city, how to connect and make opportunity and make connections, and that would be something to really think about with crosswalks in particular, since that's what they do.
Yeah, I was just going to say, but I'm having a problem with my mute button here. That it'd be interesting to have different routes have different kind of themes in the bus shelters and in the crosswalks, and so that as you're actively traveling those routes, it's like you're going on the sort of a mystery tour, something more than just hopping on a bus. Maybe even include bus wraps and or interior artwork for the the advertising sections up along the ceiling. We do that, right? Showing the fact that I've never been on a bus here. But stuff that can be done on the interior to just really make it a kind of an arts adventure.
Good ideas. Yeah. So we're sort of decided to maybe continue this conversation more when Dara is here and bring the crosswalks into it and thinking about a larger plan. Is that what I'm hearing? Does that make sense? That's good.
Great. So on to the agenda for next time.
Okay. And then is bus shelters wrapped up in that 3D bus shelters, or is that something something to discuss at a future meeting?
So next steps on that, Kelly, would that be engaging?
I mean, it would be maybe just get that committee together and see if they want to do that, and then bring it back to the full commission. See if there's funding, to see if you all want to fund it.
Yeah, I would think the committee would need to get together and make a proposal about what that would be, and include the funding that the donors have in mind and how much they think they can raise, and whether we would want to add any dollars to that from the Public Art Commission dollars. And so come back to this group with a proposal. Makes sense to me.
Okay. Sounds good.
And does that wrap us? Looking back at the agenda, we don't have any public commentators today, doesn't look like.
Nope.
Okay.
Are we into other comments and thought processes for a moment?
Mhm.
I think someone who has helped this commission out, I want to make sure we recognize that Sylvia Sprinkle Hamlin had passed away yesterday.
Oh,
I don't know if y'all know that. Black Theater, National Black Theater made an announcement today. And she was head of the library system for 40 years here in the city. So I just feel like we should recognize her contribution to our city and, you know, all her support with the art in the library here in town as well. And my second one has to do with, someone brought to my attention the sculpture in Kernersville, that they thought it was turning more yellow, but maybe that's the way the sun was reflecting off of it. I didn't know if we wanted to check it out and see if there's anything going on with that piece. You know,
I
I'm
can-
just bringing it up as a, you know, to our attention.
I can go take a look at it.
Okay.
Where, tell me again where it is.
The Kernersville Library and the, what is that area called, Kelly? It's
Courtyard.
Courtyard. Thank you. That's a good word.
That was
Yeah.
just installed, what, 2 years ago?
I think even less.
Yeah, feels like it was last year at some point.
I think you're right.
I think we commissioned it 2 years ago. And it
And
just may be, you know, that it's reaching its patina. Who knows?
That could be, that's sandstone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a dolomitic sandstone, maybe.
Okay.
Mhm. So anyway, that was my two things to just bring to our attention. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go take a look at it.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jane and Cliff.
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks, Cliff. Mhm.
Sure.
Are there other business that folks want to bring up? Well, thank you, everyone. I guess I can just say that we're adjourned. Is that the way that one works?
Yes,
Don't we move?
I don't think we have to move to adjourn, do we? If so, I so move.
Well, I'll second.
And I don't think we really have to vote on that. No,
Oh,
I haven't done that in the past. Thank you, Betsy. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Happy New Year to everyone.
Very happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year.
Yeah.
yeah, Happy New Year,
Happy
everyone.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thanks all.
Thank you.